It shaped how they spent their mornings, who they spoke to, what they read, how they trained, what they tolerated. Their mind was locked on target. And because of that, every ounce of energy got funneled into that one outcome. The results looked supernatural. But they weren't. They were just the product of undiluted focus. Think about what happens when you don't have a dominating thought. Your mind wanders. You react to every notification. You get pulled into drama. You chase random opportunities. You say yes to things out of boredom or FOMO. Hence, your schedule fills up, but your progress doesn't. That's not a discipline problem. It's a direction problem. You're driving a Ferrari with no map, and speed without direction is chaos. So what do? You make the decision. You pick the one thing that matters most and you plant it in your brain like a flag. You repeat it, you write it, you speak it aloud. You feel it in your bones. Every morning, every night, you program it so deeply that your brain can't ignore it. It becomes your lens, your filter, your focus point. Now, that thought becomes your identity. An identity-based focus is the strongest force in the human mind. When your mind is built around a dominating thought, you stop negotiating with yourself. You don't waste time convincing yourself to take action. You've already decided. You've already committed. You've already committed. And that kind of clarity creates speed. Not the frantic kind, the precise kind. You move faster because you're no longer second-guessing. You don't need 10 options. You don't need a backup plan. You've picked your target, and your entire mind is aimed at it like a sniper. That's how mental power is unlocked, not through scattered effort, through singular obsession, through total alignment between your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your vision. You can have the best strategy, the perfect schedule, and the cleanest environment, but if there's no emotion behind your goal, your focus will flicker like a dying light bulb. Napoleon Hill knew it from the jump. The mind doesn't move unless the heart does. You want the secret to unlocking your brain's full potential? Tie your focus to a feeling, not a thought, not a fact, a feeling. Because logic can point the way, but only emotion pulls the trigger. If you're trying to stay focused without being emotionally invested, you're basically running a race with no gas in the tank. Here's the reality most people dodge. Your brain doesn't prioritize based on importance. It prioritizes based on intensity. What hits you hardest? What moves you emotionally? That's what gets your attention. That's why you can remember the exact lyrics to a song that got you through a breakup, but forget the meeting you just sat through 5 minutes ago. Emotion is the highlighter your brain uses to underline what matters. It's not optional. It's how the operating system is built. So if your goals aren't soaked in emotion, they won't stick. They won't spark. They won't drive you. You'll have to drag yourself through every step. And that's how people burn out. Now, when Hill talked about focus, he didn't mean forcing your way through a boring task with brute force. He meant obsession. He meant total mental lock-in. And obsession doesn't come from logic. It comes from feeling. That burning desire he always talked about. That's not a cute motivational phrase. That's the entry point. That's the switch that flips everything on. When your vision is charged with emotion, when you actually feel the cost of staying the same and the power of what's possible, focus stops being something you try to find. It becomes automatic. You're no longer wondering what to do. You're pulled by something deeper. Think about athletes in the zone. Artists on fire. Entrepreneurs building something they believe in with their whole soul. They're not checking timers. They're not debating whether to keep going. They're inside it. Time disappears. Noise disappears. Why? Because they're emotionally immersed. That's how flow happens. And that's where elite focus lives, not in willpower, but in immersion. And immersion is only possible when the brain is emotionally locked in. The problem is most people try to stay focused on things they don't actually care about. So they pick goals that sound good, look good on paper, get applause from other people. But deep down, there's no fire, no tension, no emotional edge. So the brain treats those goals like background static. You can write them down 100 times, but if you don't feel anything when you read them, nothing changes. Focus doesn't live in your notebook. It lives in your nervous system. If there's no surge of feeling behind your goal, your mind will wander the second something easier shows up. Hill said it clearly. The subconscious only responds to thoughts that are mixed with emotion. That's the access point. And the more intense the emotion, the faster the programming happens. That's why people change instantly after a trauma or a deep emotional experience. The emotion makes the message stick. So if you want to program your brain for total focus, you need to create that same emotional imprint on purpose. You do it through visualization, through speaking your goals with passion, through writing them until they become a script in your bloodstream, but not robotically. Not like a checklist. You've got to breathe life into the words. You've got to make it personal. Emotion doesn't just create focus. It creates urgency. And urgency kills hesitation. Most people are stuck in a loop of later. Later becomes next week, next month, next year. They can't focus because the goal doesn't feel now. But when you attach an emotional consequence to not acting, when you truly feel the cost of inaction, your brain shifts. It goes into survival mode. It says, we can't wait anymore. That's when everything aligns. Suddenly, distractions lose their pull. You stop checking your phone mid-task. You stop negotiating with your excuses because you're emotionally committed. And emotional commitment is what creates tunnel vision. There's another layer to this too. Your brain not only locks in on what you want, it also locks in on what you fear. Hill didn't shy away from that. He knew that negative emotion can be just as powerful as positive when it's transmuted into drive. Shame, anger, rejection, failure. If you don't bury it, if you channel it, that emotion can become fuel. It can become fire. Some of the most focused people on the planet aren't just driven by dreams. They're haunted by what they refuse to go back to. And that pressure, that pain, when aimed correctly, it creates a kind of focus that no hack or trick can replicate. Your job is to turn your goal into a living thing. Make it breathe. Make it matter. Don't just think about what you want. Feel what it would mean to have it. Feel what it would mean to not have it. Feel what it would mean to not have it. Picture the version of you who made it happen and the version of you who didn't. That emotional contrast is power. It gives your goal weight, and when something has weight, your mind pays attention. That's how you override the static. That's how you rise above the noise. You give your brain a reason to care. This is why some people seem like they have superhuman focus. It's not a secret routine. It's not some perfect morning ritual. It's emotional clarity. They've tied their focus to something real. And when you do that, your entire system adjusts. You talk differently. You move differently. You show up to the work with fire instead of friction. The resistance doesn't disappear, but your reasons get louder than your doubts. And when your reasons are emotional enough, they don't just guide your focus, they command it. Your brain is programmable. That's not philosophy. That's neuroscience. It doesn't matter where you started, what your IQ is, or how bad your attention span feels right now. Your mind can be rewired. Napoleon Hill figured this out long before brain scans and psychology journals caught up. He called it autosuggestion, and it's not some cute affirmation game. It's a weapon, a mental override system, a backdoor access key into the operating code that controls your habits, your focus, your emotions. You take a thought, wrap it in belief, charge it with emotion, and repeat it until your subconscious starts treating it like a command. Not a maybe, not a wish, a command. And once that happens, your behavior follows automatically. You start moving without thinking. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because the mind has accepted the message as truth. That's how you shift from trying to stay focused to becoming the kind of person who doesn't lose focus in the first place. People misunderstand this all the time. They think autosuggestion means standing in front of a mirror and whispering nice things to themselves like it's some magical ritual. That's not it. Hill wasn't selling placebo. He was giving you a blueprint to rewire your attention system. What you say to yourself, especially when you say it often and with emotion, becomes the dominant programming your mind uses to decide how to act. And if you're not saying anything intentional, guess what? Your brain just plays whatever garbage it picked up from your childhood, your environment, your failures, and all the social media junk you've absorbed for years. Autosuggestion is how you take the wheel back in. It's how you drown out the noise of the I can't. I always get distracted. I'm not that disciplined, and replace it with a new internal script, one that actually serves your purpose. But here's the kicker. Your brain doesn't believe what's true. It believes what's repeated. That's the loophole. That's the back door. And if you don't exploit it, you'll stay stuck reacting to old, outdated programming that doesn't match your goals anymore. Focus isn't just about effort. It's about identity. If deep down you still believe you're someone who never finishes what they start, your brain will do everything it can to keep that story alive. That belief is like software running quietly in the background, slowing down every process, crashing your attention every time you try to lock in. Try to lock in. Auto-suggestion is the patch that rewrites that code. You don't need to be perfect at first. You just need to be consistent. Feed your brain a new message over and over until that new story becomes your default setting. Repetition is where the real magic happens. Not once. Not when you feel inspired. We're talking daily, structured, relentless. You say the same line, same vision, same belief until it's baked into your nervous system. You repeat it until your subconscious stops questioning it. And once that belief gets embedded, focus becomes a natural extension of it. You don't have to hype yourself up every morning. Your mind's already running the script you programmed. It's already scanning the environment for ways to win, block distractions, ignore temptation, and stay locked in. Hill was very specific about this. He said to write down your chief aim, your purpose in exact terms. Not vague fluff, not vague fluff. Not I want to be more productive. That won't cut it. You need hard edges. You need clarity. I am focused. I am locked in. My mind is a weapon. I execute without hesitation. These aren't casual words. They're commands. They're mental software, and like all software, they need to be installed. Spoken out loud, repeated with feeling twice a day. That's not motivational fluff. That's how you override the junk code running your life. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. When you sit at a space that's been physically shaped for work, clean, minimal, intentional, your brain picks up that cue. It shifts gears. It knows what's expected. Now, some people think they can out-discipline a chaotic space. They can't. Willpower is a limited resource. Environment is a persistent force. You can spend every morning convincing yourself to get in the zone, or you can build a space that puts you in the zone automatically. That means removing clutter. That means killing visual distractions. That means putting tools within reach and temptations out of sight. You're not making things perfect. You're making them frictionless. Because the easier it is to enter a flow state, the less mental resistance you face. And when resistance drops, focus becomes second nature. But it's not just about your space, about your digital environment too. This is where most people completely sabotage themselves. They try to focus with 19 tabs open, 3 messaging apps pinging, and their phone lighting up like a slot machine every 5 minutes. Then they wonder why they can't get anything done. Your digital space is just as real as your physical one, maybe more, because it lives with you all day, in your pocket, in your hand, in your field of vision. Every notification, every open tab, every unread email is a tiny drain on your attention. It might only take a second to glance, but that second costs you minutes of recovery. Because every time you switch tasks, your brain has to reorient. That's not multitasking, that's mental fragmentation. And fragmentation kills focus. If you want to win this game, you have to control your inputs ruthlessly. That means silencing everything that doesn't serve your dominating thought, turning off notifications, deleting apps that feed distraction, setting boundaries around your tech usage like your mind depends on it, because it does. You have to treat your digital environment like sacred ground. It's not about being anti-tech. It's about being pro-focus. You're not cutting out connection. You're cutting out noise. Now, let's talk about people, because your social environment might be the most powerful focus lever you're ignoring. Who you talk to, who you listen to, who you let into your mental space, all of that is shaping how you think. Energy is contagious. Beliefs are contagious. Discipline is contagious. So is distraction. You spend enough time around people who normalize procrastination, who glorify being busy but never effective, who chase hype over mastery, and you'll start to absorb that mindset without even noticing. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is wired for social mirroring. It picks up on the behaviors around it and copies them. That's survival. That's biology. You can't fight that instinct. You can only redirect it. That's why the fastest way to increase your focus is to upgrade your circle. Get around people who take their craft seriously. Who aren't just talking about success, they're putting in focused hours when no one's watching. Being in proximity to that kind of intensity rewires your standards. Suddenly, you're not just trying to focus, you expect focus, you require it from yourself. Because anything less starts to feel out of place. That's the power of environment. It doesn't just support your actions, it dictates your expectations. Even if you're physically alone, you can still build a social environment that elevates you. Curate your inputs. Listen to people who are obsessed with mastery. Read words from minds that challenge you. Watch content that fires you up and refocuses you. Every voice you let into your ears becomes part of your mental counsel. If that counsel is filled with noise, you'll be scattered. If it's filled with clarity, you'll be sharp. That's not hype. That's cognitive conditioning. You become what you're surrounded by, whether you like it or not. So the question isn't, why can't I focus? The question is, what am I allowing around me and makes focus harder than it needs to be? That question should haunt you in the best way. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize focus isn't about being some superhuman. It's about designing an environment so aligned, so clean, so locked in that distraction feels foreign. You don't have to force discipline. When your surroundings make discipline feel natural, you don't have to resist temptation when it's not even in the room. Hill understood that success was never just internal. It had to be built on a foundation that supported it. And focus, real, deep, undistracted focus, isn't just a matter of mindset. It's a matter of environment. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your environment is the system that holds everything together or tears everything apart. Dot focus isn't just logic. It's not a productivity app or a perfectly organized calendar. Focus is emotional. You don't lock in because you planned well. You lock in because something inside you fires. Something ignites. That's what Napoleon Hill was pointing to when he talked about a burning desire. It wasn't poetic. It was strategic. Because the brain doesn't prioritize based on what's most important. It prioritizes based on what feels most urgent. Emotion is the shortcut to urgency, and urgency is the gateway to focus. Your brain is designed to respond to survival. It's been trained for millions of years to ignore what's irrelevant and zoom in on what matters right now. That's why you could be scrolling endlessly on your phone, completely numb to time, but suddenly, if someone yells your name or screams a fire, your attention snaps instantly. That's not training. That's wiring. And if wiring doesn't switch off just because you're trying to build a business or write a thesis or get through a to-do list, if the brain doesn't feel a reason to focus, if the emotional volume isn't loud, it won't lock in. It'll drift. It'll stall. It'll reach for something easier. That's not weakness. That's biology. And emotion is the override key. Hill knew that raw emotion, when channeled, is the most powerful form of mental fuel. He didn't say a wish really hard. He said burning desire. That's not a soft feeling. That's fire. That's obsession. That's emotional intensity, so real it physically changes how you act. When you care that deeply about something, when you feel it in your body, your mind starts filtering everything else out. Distractions shrink. Time warps. Energy shows up where it didn't exist 5 minutes ago. That's the effect of emotional focus. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop asking, how do I stay productive? And you start becoming someone who simply moves because the fire is too real to ignore. This is where most people fail. They try to build focus through routine alone. Wake up early, check the boxes, stay off social media, all good steps, but none of it sticks if there's no emotional gravity behind what you're doing. You can build a perfect system, but if you're not moved, it's just mechanical. And mechanics break. Passion doesn't. Discipline without emotion becomes burnout. Discipline backed by emotion becomes obsession. Obsession is what keeps you in the zone when everything else says stop. Now let's get clear. Emotion doesn't mean hype. It doesn't mean screaming into a mirror or forcing fake motivation. Emotion means connection. It means digging so deep into your reason for doing something that it physically hits you. That reason has to be personal. It has to be raw. It has to be raw. It has to cut through the fog. Whether it's proving something to yourself, changing your family's legacy, or fulfilling a vision you can't stop thinking about, it has to matter so much that doing anything else feels like betrayal. That's when focus turns on by itself. That's when the excuses stop sounding smart. Smart, because you're no longer making decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You're being pulled by something bigger. Your brain isn't logical by default. It's reactive. It moves toward what feels urgent. So your job isn't to push harder, it's to turn up the emotional volume. Get clear on why you need to focus, and not in surface terms. I want to be successful this week. I want freedom so my kids never have to feel what I felt growing up. Now we're talking. That hits. That burns. And when it burns, it commands your mind. That's what creates focus that doesn't shake. Because it's not discipline for discipline's sake, it's survival. And the brain knows how to survive. You just have to give it a target that matters. Hill said the starting point of all achievement is desire, not talent, not opportunity, desire. Because desire creates obsession, creates clarity, clarity creates focus, and focus, real, emotionally driven focus, is what produces greatness. If you're trying to focus without feeling anything, it'll never last. You'll start strong and fade fast. But when you feel what's at stake, when you can picture the cost of not executing, when you emotionally tie your actions to something that lights your soul on fire, now the game changes. Now you don't need hacks. You don't need external motivation. You become the motivation. You become the motivation. This isn't just mindset. It's chemical. When you're emotionally activated, your brain floods with norepinephrine and dopamine. Your prefrontal cortex sharpens. You enter what researchers call a flow state, where distractions bounce off you like bullets off armor. Time distorts. Action becomes fluid. And it all starts with a spark, an emotional ignition that tells your brain, this matters. Right now. That's what emotion does. It tells your brain what's real. And your brain builds your focus around it. You felt it before. Think about the last time you were angry, heartbroken, or terrified. Could you think of anything else? No. Your mind locked in on that one emotion like a missile. Every thought, every ounce of energy got sucked into it. That's how focus works. Now imagine if you could trigger that intensity, but tied to your vision, your goals, your mission. That's what emotion does when it's channeled. It stops your mind from wandering. It builds a magnetic field around your attention. Suddenly, you're not fighting to focus. You're fighting to stop. People want to learn how to focus, but they skip the core. The core isn't strategy. It's soul. It's wiring your brain to care so deeply about one outcome that it overrides your laziness, your fear, your doubt. That kind of focus can't be copied. It can't be faked. It has to come from within. And once it does, you can work for 10 hours and feel like you just started. You can tune out noise that used to dominate your day because the emotional charge behind your actions is carrying the weight. It's making your brain choose intensity over indulgence, purpose over pleasure, results over reactions. Focus isn't about controlling your thoughts. It's about feeding your thoughts the right emotional fuel so they automatically organize themselves. When you do that, when you build your focus on top of something you feel, you unlock a level of mental clarity and drive that discipline alone can't touch. That's not hype. That's design. That's design. That's what Hill meant when he talked about desire as the engine. Without emotion, you're just running on fumes. With it, you become unstoppable.